Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for Final Fantasy TCG today, I thought I'd come at my video with a little bit of a different angle. And with some of the spoilers that have been coming out for Opus 9 lately, like Ifrita and Maya and various different cards, I wanted to take a look at some of the artwork that we've had over the years for Final Fantasy TCG. And there's actually been some really great pieces of artwork come from this game, whether it be kind of stock images, Amano artwork, or completely original pieces. There's loads of really nice bits of artwork. So I wanted to go through with you guys my top 10 picks for artwork within the Final Fantasy TCG. As always, don't forget to check all of the social links in the description box below so that you can come and find me on Twitter or Facebook or Twitch or Patreon or Discord. There's all sorts of places for you to come and find me if you want to chat to me for anything. And let's not forget that this is all purely opinion based. In fact, I encourage you guys to kind of share your thoughts on these things. Leave a comment in the comments below and tell me what your favourite artwork into FFTCG is, and just kind of jump along for the ride and see what my favourites are. Now, going off of the card I mentioned earlier, which is Ifrita, who is a card in Mobius, I think that some of Mobius's artwork is some of the best artwork that Final Fantasy has ever had, and it makes me so happy to see so much of the artwork from that come into Final Fantasy TCG. Honestly, they could keep loading it up, loading it up, loading it up, loading it up. But my first two picks are going to be Mobius artwork that we've had prior to Opus 9. All the cards I'm talking about are going to be prior to Opus 9. I'm hoping we get some really nice ones come out of Opus 9 as well. And if Ifrita's anything to go by, I think we'll be fine. But the first one I want to talk about is actually the title character from Mobius, Wall. I really like this piece of artwork. I think it's dynamic. I think that the colour palette complements the Earth card very, very well. It's all earthy tones, yellows, browns, that kind of things. But it does really work for the card. And having kind of the rocks come up and have him swinging his sword across his arm. And I just really like this piece of artwork. I think that Wall has featured in so much artwork from Mobius. I think that I had to, speak about something to do with him somewhere down the line. And we've also had a lot of really nice summons come out from Mobius. You've got Diablos, there's Ramuh that's really nice, there's an Odin that's really nice, but the card that I wanted to focus on today that I really like for its artwork, and its artwork alone, not its effects, is Shiva. Now, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that because I don't think Shiva's a terrible card at all, but I really love the colour palette they use for this, where it's got like bits of pinks and purples alongside the blues, and again, there's a lot of movement in it. It's really just like, it's ice cool, and it just works for the card as well. She's got this wonderfully feminine pose that she's sort of like lying, she's reclining back, she's quite happy doing her thing, but that's Shiva to a T. She is all sass. And she is wonderful, and I love her for it. So to see her represented in such a nice way in card form, and she's had quite a few nice ones in fact, like the Dissidia NT Shiva was quite nice as well, but I just really, really like this one. Final Fantasy XIV has actually given us an absolute plethora of really nice pieces, but there's two from Final Fantasy XIV in particular that I think stand out amongst the rest and stand out as just really nice pieces of artwork within the Final Fantasy TCG. And the first of those is Minfilia. Much for the same reason I like Shiva, I really like the kind of the reclined pose. I think it's very elegant and very kind of feminine. And she looks regal, and I think that that's something that is really important in Final Fantasy because there's a certain air of royalty about everything to do with that game. It just gets styled down to a T, and I really love how Minfilia sort of shows that. I've been very fortunate, and I actually have this on a long deck box that came with the 7th anniversary of the game since its inception in the Chapters variant. So I actually have that piece of art on a box, and I love it. But I just think that there's something about just the peacefulness of this piece that I really enjoy, and I think that I'd like to see more artwork like it, because there's not a huge amount going on in the background for this picture. It's just Minfilia, she's doing a thing, she's sleeping, and it just looks beautiful. And then the second piece is quite the opposite of Minfilia when it comes to the art kind of style. And it's Estinian, which is very much an action shot, but the use of colour in this and kind of the way the oranges clash with the purples, like on the cut, just the way the colours stand out, it's just stunning. And I just think that it shows that the card is powerful, that it's there to just run in and kick ass. And I really like it. The Eye of Nidhogg in one hand and the kind of the light coming out of it. like I said, the use of colour in this, I just really love it. So honestly, FF14 provides us with a huge amount of really nice artwork, and hopefully there'll be even more of that to come over the next couple of sets. Certainly if we get like a Shadowbringers expansion, that'll be something nice to look forward to. But I loved both Istinian and Minfilia. I think they're both gorgeous pieces of artwork. One of the things I really enjoy about the artwork in Final Fantasy TCG is that it draws from artwork that we may not have seen in the West very much, and an example of that comes in the form of the cards that are derived from the Lords of Vermillion game, which is a game that's like I don't actually know an awful lot about, if I'm perfectly honest. I believe it was a PC game that involved the use of cards and things like that, that involved various different characters from the series, but the artwork for some of it is absolutely stunning. And again, I've picked two from this because I just think that their art style is fantastic, and they're Kamlanor and Kuja. Now, Kuja obviously has a very special place in my heart. Like, I was gonna pick a Kuja somewhere down the line, but I wanted not to use the Dissidia NT version, because as much as I like that card, and I think the Dissidia NT pictures all look really nice and they work very well for a card style background, like they're very much in the foreground and the black clouds in the background. They all work, but they all look very similar. So I've avoided using those for this particular list. But the Lords of Vermillion Kuja, again, it looks really peaceful, and it's just, Kuja looking very elegant. He's got like the bird coming down onto his hand, and I just think it's such a different take on Kuja, because most of Kuja's artwork, if you look on anything like Dissidia or anything like that, are him looking like he's kind of standing above everybody and that he's very arrogant, which he is, and narcissistic and all of those things. But there's something about this particular picture I like because it gives him a humility that you're not used to seeing from him, and I think it makes him look very human, which, if you know Kuja well, like I do, you know that he does everything he does out of fear and out of like not wanting to be alone. So I actually really enjoyed this particular picture for that reason. And then Kamlanor, it's a real close-up of him, and it's, but it does exactly what I've not said about what Kuja does. It gives him a sense of royalty, a sense of, just it emanates power, and it's just it's a very simple color scheme as well. It's practically just black and white. And yet, it looks right on the backdrop of a card. Certainly for a dark card, which has obviously sort of dark grey tones over the kind of the card framing and things like that. And one thing I notice is that when it comes to any kind of card game, having the card frame and the artwork interlink in a nice way actually speaks volumes for the artwork in general. Because if you have like the wrong colours go together, it really just throws the whole thing off. But because Kamlanor has such a simple colour palette and yet such a powerful sort of figurative stance, I think it's a great piece of artwork, and now that we've had the full art version of him as well, it looks even better. Now, we can't talk Final Fantasy artwork without mentioning Yoshitaka Amano. His artwork is legendary. I've actually followed his artwork since before I even knew much about Final Fantasy, because I used to love his work on Vampire Hunter D. I think he did some Castlevania work at some point, but I really love his art style, and I know it's a real love it or hate it thing. Number of people who I've had arguments with, they go, I don't know why you like this artwork, there's no detail to it. It's like, no, that's the point. It's all based on kind of Sumi-e artwork from like ancient Japanese artwork, and I think that it's fantastic that he's modernized it and made it work in a setting that doesn't befit the style, and I really love it. So anyone who hates Amano artwork, you and I are going to have words. But if I were to pick one piece of his artwork that I loved more than any of the others, and I think many people will agree with me on this, it's got to be Lunafreya. Like, again, the color palette works beautifully with the art, the card frame and the color scheme of the card. And I think a lot of people don't like Amano artwork because there's generally not a background or anything. It's literally just the character and that's it. But with this one, you can't have that argument because it's got a gorgeous background. It actually comes from the FF15 Special Edition, which I did have at one point, but I think I traded it in. I have bought it again since, don't worry. But it's just a really nice piece overall. And I hope that with future FF15 cards we'll have, because it's more like a tapestry, that picture. So I hope that we get little bits from other parts of that tapestry come into card form at some point. Now, the cards that I'm listing here are in no particular order as such, but honestly, I'm kind of cheating here, and this is probably my favourite artwork in the entire game. And I'm cheating because it's actually two cards, and it's not one. And there's a couple of examples of kind of the two cards interlinking. And I think the reason I like this one as much as I do is because I didn't realise that they interlinked until a fair amount later. So, I mean, you've got Yuna and Len, which look very pretty side by side, but I mean, honestly, I've got no affinity to that particular picture. Delita and Ramza, however, the picture where if you put because on the cards you have to put them diagonally next to each other, they come from a single piece of artwork, and Delita is at the top of the stairs and Ramza is at the bottom of the stairs, and they're both like looking at each other, not knowing whether they're friends or enemies. And Tactics is one of the games that I've not played a huge amount of, but really want to. But I have it on my phone. I just haven't had the time to sit and properly play it because I really want to give it the time it deserves. But there's something about the painterly pencil style artwork. There's always like sketch lines all the way through the artwork for Final Fantasy Tactics, and I absolutely love it. But this particular piece just speaks to me. There's a very wide colour palette. It's really, really nice to see kind of one looking down at the other one looking up in hope at the other. I just think it's a beautiful piece of artwork, and honestly, if I were to get a poster for any picture within Final Fantasy TCG, I would want that piece as one canvas. Now, the last two cards that I want to talk about are actually original pieces of artwork for Final Fantasy TCG. And I think, honestly, there is something about this guy's art style that I absolutely adore. I think that it's stunning. It has a style that's actually quite similar to my own in a lot of ways. I love the way he uses ink. And this is Yoshitaka Matsuda, who does a lot of the original artwork for the game, but there's two pieces in particular that I really like. One of them comes from Opus 6, the other one from Opus 7. The one from Opus 6 is Leon, and the reason that Leon jumps out at me more than like Furion or Guy or Maria or some of the other pieces that he's done is because I don't remember Leon being that hot, honestly. Like, you know, he's usually sort of portrayed as an older man who's, you know, quite gruff and quite, you know, he usually wears his armor, he's a Dark Knight, all that stuff. But there's something about the way that he's portrayed with such beauty in Opus 6 that I was just like, I was completely taken aback by it, and I love it. I think, like, he's made me like the character more, and that's a really, really exceptional thing for a piece of artwork to do. I think that's fantastic. And I now want to know more about the character because I really like this particular take on his design. Obviously, it's not going to be for everybody. Some people will prefer the more berserker-ish style for him, but I actually just was shocked by this one in such a good way that it made me like the character more. And then in Opus 7, you know, if it weren't for the Delita and Ramza picture, this would probably be the card I wanted as a canvas of some sort, and I might actually just have to figure out some way to get a print of it. But it's Bartz. I actually really like Bartz as a character. He's not a character I talk about very often, but he's actually one of my favourite characters in Final Fantasy. I really, really have grown to really love Bartz, but I think just the ink splatters and the use of colour, he reminds me of another artist that I really, really loved and I studied for years growing up, which was Ayami Kojima, who was the artist for the Castlevania series between sort of Symphony of the Night and the end of the DS era, and I absolutely adore her art style, and this reminds me a little bit of that, and I wasn't expecting that from this game. You know, I would love to meet him. I think that his art style is quite inspiring. I think that he paints in a way that I would want to paint, and just seeing the artwork coming to life in the game. I mean, he's done a lot of really, really nice pieces like Bahamut, Ark, Maydeen. He's done a lot of original artwork for the game, but his style just really jumps out at me, and I really look forward to seeing his art in every set from now on. So there you have it. There are my top 10 picks for artwork within the Final Fantasy trading card game. I honestly think that some of the artwork we've had coming out of the sets, the last 3 or 4 sets, have been fantastic, and I'd really like to know what your favourite cards are within the Final Fantasy TCG. Do you agree with me about loving Yoshitaka Amano's work, Yoshitaka Matsuda's work? There's so many really under-celebrated artists, particularly on this side of the world compared to, say, Japan, who have such distinctive art styles, and I really love the way that Final Fantasy in general just incorporates so many different styles and integrates pop culture into itself and things like that. that makes me love the franchise for what it is. So definitely let me know what your favorite cards in terms of artwork are in the comments below, because I think one of the things I love most is that we're all going to have different opinions, and this is something that everyone can get on board with. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications for any Final Fantasy TCG or Dissidia Opera news that you may want to hear, and stay tuned for more videos. We've got loads of Opus 9 stuff coming up. We've not got long to wait for its release now, and I shall actually be in Eindhoven this weekend for the Crystal Cup Earth. So if you happen to be at that particular event, as always, I would love it if you guys come over and say hello. I love the fact that I can use these videos as an icebreaker to start conversations, and I'd really like to get to know more of you guys. So I look forward to seeing you if you're there, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Thanks again, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.